In Jalandhar, Punjab, a male factory worker reported a kidnapping and sexual assault involving 4 women in a car. He claimed he was drugged and assaulted while the women were ostensibly asking for directions. Immediate public assumptions usually demand that the accused face the full weight of rape statutes for such an assault. However, current Indian law makes it legally impossible to charge these women with rape or to classify the male worker as a rape victim. This discrepancy is a deliberate, structural feature of the Indian Penal Code, exposing the distance between factual reality and statutory definitions. The Indian Penal Code is a strictly structured legal framework dating back to the 19th century, where definitions are rigid and unyielding. In legal jurisprudence, a crime only exists if the specific textual conditions of the code are met. Moral outrage cannot substitute for statutory criteria. While generic offenses apply to anyone, highly specialized legal classifications are gatekept by specific biological criteria. Understanding the Jalandar case requires moving past the physical act and examining the exact grammatical phrasing of the law. Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code stands as the foundational statute defining the crime of rape in India. Analyzing the text shows that the law explicitly dictates the biological sex of the victim, using the phrase sexual intercourse with a woman. Courts interpret this phrasing to mandate that the legal perpetrator can only be male. The code also contains a marital rape exception, stating that forced intercourse by a man with his wife is not rape if she is over 18. Assaults against male victims are shunted to Article 377, a separate category for unnatural offenses. Section 375 functions as a gender-locked legal mechanism, forcing courts to classify identical physical acts differently based solely on the gender of those involved. The case of Priya Patel versus the state of Madhya Pradesh tested how these rigid statutes handle female accomplices in the context of gang rape. The facts began with Bhanu Pratap Patel committing a primary sexual assault. His wife, Priya Patel, entered the room and struck the victim. She then exited and locked the door from the outside, trapping the victim with the attacker. The trial court initially charged both the husband and Priya Patel with gang rape under Section 376.2g. While this charge aligned with the logic of physical facilitation, it created a direct conflict with the textual limitations of Section 375. Priya Patel appealed the charge, arguing that a conviction for gang rape was a statutory impossibility for a woman. Criminal liability requires both Actus Reus, the physical act, and Mens Rea, the guilty legal intent. The court acknowledged that Priya Patel fulfilled the Actus Reus by physically locking the door to aid the crime. The central legal question became whether she could legally possess the mens rea, or intent, to commit gang rape as a co-perpetrator. Legal intent is tied directly to the text of Section 375, which defines the perpetrator as male. The legal system was forced to determine if a citizen could hold the legal intent to collaborate on a crime they are biologically barred from committing. The Supreme Court of India intervened to resolve this conflict of interpretation. The court ruled that accomplice liability in a gang rape requires the accomplice to have the capacity to commit the primary offense. Because Section 375 legally prevents a woman from committing rape, she is statutorily incapable of possessing the mens rea for it. Consequently, the Supreme Court quashed the charges, ruling that a woman cannot be prosecuted for gang rape even if she physically facilitates it. This established a precedent. Factual complicity is irrelevant if the primary statute explicitly excludes a demographic from liability. This returns us to the allegations in Jalandhar, 4 women actively assaulting a male victim in a vehicle. Under the Priya Patel precedent, their biological sex legally shields them from being charged with the crime of rape. They remain subject to peripheral charges, such as kidnapping, standard assault, or offenses under Section 377. While these charges provide a path to prosecution, the inability to charge the primary offense highlights the friction of applying 19th century statutes to modern crimes. Legal scholars and policy analysts increasingly argue that the IPC requires an amendment to recognize perpetrators and victims of all genders. Many international jurisdictions have already transitioned to gender-neutral sexual assault frameworks. Change in India requires legislative action from Parliament, a process involving complex socio-political debate. Until the legislator rewrites the text, the Supreme Court remains bound by the literal word of the law, maintaining the conflict between legal reality and factual reality.